Yes, Teacher Joan, we can begin. Others will find us on the way because we have overweighted. Hello, Teacher Joan.
Hello. Yes, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Platform. I think we can begin. Others will find us on the way. Right?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. To start with, I want us to have a recap of what we had in the previous lesson, and basically we are looking at production, the topic. So those who are around last time and those who have just joined, you're welcome. I think you have some ideas about production. So we are going to have a brief recap on what we covered last time. For example, the definition for production. Can we have some members to give us the definition for production? You can put your hand up and give in your idea about production.
Okay. And the idea I have about production is that production refers to the process of transferring inputs or raw materials into finished outputs that makes more satisfying or useful to man.
That's a nice one. Thanks, Emma. Anyone else? Just like he has said, production involves changing or transforming raw materials into final goods. So once you're producing, you will need the raw materials that you're going to use for making or transforming into final goods. And we also looked at the categories of production, where we said that we have primary production, secondary, and tertiary. So can we have someone to briefly tell us anything about primary production, what he or she thinks primary production means? Yes, Alvin, your hand is up.
It's the tertiary production is like the extraction of raw materials from the earth.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So primary production, he has said that it involves extraction. Yeah, it's right. It involves extraction of resources. It can be on top of the earth. It can be up in the air. It can be below. For example, below we get gold. On there is water. There are some resources we get from water, and yeah. So that's the basic about the primary production. Anyone to talk about the secondary production? Yes, secondary production. If we say that primary production involves extraction of resources, it means that we are going to use what resources we extract primary production, make them final goods in the secondary production. So secondary, we are using the raw materials that we extracted in the primary production to make them or to transform them into finished goods. That's secondary production. Then for tertiary, it involves provision of services. For example, the teachers provide services to the students. That's a service and it is under tertiary production. You can talk about to the lawyers, the doctors, engineers, and so on. Apart from the categories of production, we also have what we call types of production. Anyone to talk about types of production?
Under types of production, we have direct production, which involves like the process, like it refers to the production of a commodity for producers' own use. And then we also have indirect production, where one produces commercial production, where one produces commodities for sale.
Oh,
Sorry about that, but the feature is reconnecting. Let's be patient.
Okay, we are back on board. My internet has issues. Sorry about that. So we're talking about production, and I was talking about direct and indirect production. So when we talk of direct production, the produce is basically made for your own consumption. So that's direct production. And it can as well be called subsistence production. Then when you talk of indirect, it's the opposite. Basically, the goods are produced for commercial purposes. It can be either for exchange purpose and there are factor prices. We have the recap. I'm trying to connect to numbers, give us the factors of production. Yes, Patience, your mic is unmuted. Are you giving us some factors of production?
The factors of production. We have land.
Yes,
We have land, labor, entrepreneurship. Yeah.
we have land, labor, entrepreneur factor, and labor entrepreneurship.
Like we have land, labor, entrepreneurship, capital, and organization.
We have capital, and you can also add organization. So these are prices. For example, for land is rent. Emmanuel, you were saying?
Like I was adding on Alvin's point, like the one that he had missed out organization, I think.
To the factor price for land is rent. For labor, that's who can give us the factor price for labor? Labor, it's either salary or a wage. Capital, that's interest, and then for entrepreneurs, that's profit. It's the entrepreneur. And today we are looking at labor in detail. Labor, of course, they are individuals. They are individuals. It can be characteristic.
Madam, I beg your pardon on the question.
We give in the characteristics of labor.
Labor, the characteristics we have that it is mobile.
My hand is up. Are you giving us a feature of labor? That's right. Thank you. The mobility under labor is at a short Viva Jenna. Jenna, are you giving us another feature? Mobility of labor, that's mobility or geographical mobility, mobile. Any other feature? So you can talk of the effort. Yes.
Labor.
Timothy, something?
Madam,
Yes, please.
labor, the characteristic of labor is labor effort cannot be stored.
It is unstable. Can you try speaking again?
Labor effort cannot be stored.
Mm-hmm. He's talking about the labor effort. It cannot be done what?
Stored. Let me say the worker, when the worker stays idle,
Okay.
when the worker stays idle, labor is wasted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. So you cannot actually store the effort of the labor. That's another feature. Anyone? Oh, so you've given us occupationally and geographically mobile for labor. There is effort. The point about effort, apart from not being able to store that effort, you can as well not separate that labor effort from the labor effort cannot be separated from the owner. And the other feature is labor is a variable factor of production, and it
Yeah.
depends on the number of factors. So we have demand for labor is derived demand, and this means that labor is not demanded for its own sake, but for the goods and services. So labor, here when we talk of labor, we do not demand labor for its own sake, but we demand labor to make sure that the goods and services are produced. In other words, this labor is going to help in the production of goods and services. You do not demand for labor for its own sake, but you demand for labor to make sure that the production is going to take place of goods and services. And we have what we call, you know what labor means and you know what supply means, some ideas about labor supply. Can you?
Madam, madam,
Yes.
the meaning of labor supply.
Yes, Viva, go ahead. Yes.
Labor supply refers to the number
Yeah.
of work.
Yes.
Madam, I get
Mm.
to refers to the number of workers willing and able to produce.
Yes, please. We are hearing you.
willing and able to work at a given wage rate in a given period of time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that input. Manuela, you've not said out anything. Jordana, Jonathan.
Right. I have another definition of labor supply, which refers to the number of people or workers who are willing and able to work at a given wage rate in a given period of time.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for that. So, all your answers are right. The two who have given us the answer. So, when we talk about labor supply, and so the number of people that are willing and able to work at a given wage rate in a given period of time. That's labor supply. So you consider the number of people. Are these
Madam, I'm requesting you repeat on the question. I mean, on the answer and the definition of labor.
people able to work? Because you
Teacher Joan, we can't hear you, and unfortunately, she has gone off.
Madam,
Yes, Viva.
we are not hearing you well.
Let's wait for her to reconnect.
Okay, you're on and off.
I think this morning her network was the baddest, but let's hope for the better as she connects.
Yes, sorry about the internet. Better next time, but we can be continuing. We were talking about labor supply, and we said that this involves the total number of people who are able to work, not only being able to work, but also willing to work, and willing to work at a certain wage rate. When we talk about the wage rate, we talk about wage rate, the total number of people that are willing to work and able to work. Then not only that, but also at a given period of time. So basically, you talk of the total number of people who are able to work and willing to work at a given wage rate and in a given period of time. That's what we can talk about the labor supply. So I want us to have some members talk about the factors determining labor supply. You give in your ideas about factors determining labor supply. Anyone on board to talk about any factor determining labor supply?
Determinants of labor supply, all factors that influence labor supply, like we present them in neutral form and with a balanced explanation showing both the low and the high levels of labor supply, like that affect labor supply. So under my, like the way I understand the point is that my point is population size.
Yes. Population size, talk about it. Yes, the point of population size is correct. Can you add there some explanation? Okay, I will explain it if you can't. Can we have another factor? Another factor determining the labor supply? Okay, we start with the labor supply. He has talked of labor supply, and just like the introduction he gave, when you talk of the population size as a point, it means that if the population is big, it means that there are more people that are able and willing to work, leading to high labor supply. And if the population is small, then it means that fewer people will be able and willing to offer services, that is leading to low population supply. So high labor supply is influenced by a big population size, and the small labor supply is influenced by the small labor supply. So you can say a big population size implies that there are more people that are able and willing to work, that's leading to a high labor supply, while the small population implies small amount of people that are able and willing to work, that's leading to the low labor supply. So apart from the population size, you can also talk about the health of the workers or of the population, the health conditions. Anyone to explain that, the health condition of the population size? Okay. So when you talk of the health conditions, the employees that are physical and mentally strong have a higher labor supply because they have gotten that energy to work for long hours. But those ones who are mentally weak or that are physically weak, they are unable to work for longer hours. So it means that the labor supply for such people will be low. And yeah, high labor supply will be high if the people around are mentally and physically strong. But if the health condition for the people around is actually poor, then the labor supply will be low because the hours you can work for when you're healthy, uh, they are not the same hours that you can work for when you're actually sick or when you have some issues. So that's about the health condition. Those ones that are well off physical and mentally, they will work for longer hours, leading to higher labor supply. And those ones that are weak physical and mentally, they will work for short hours or less hours, and that will lead to low labor supply. And apart from the population size and health conditions of the workers, there is also the age of the population, age composition. When we talk about the age, we have the young, we have the youth, and we have the elders or the old ones. So basically, when you talk of age composition, it's automatically that those ones that have aged, they will not be in position to work like those ones that are still young. So it means that for higher labor supply, you will need the young group. And then if you have only the old ones, that will lead to low labor supply because such people are unable to work for longer hours compared to those people that are young, to the group that is actually young. That's another factor to talk about. And we also have what we call the working conditions. The working conditions. So if the working conditions are favorable, of course, the labor supply will be high. And if the working conditions are unfavorable, the labor supply will be low. For example, if working condition, we can talk about the welfare at the place of work. If you have a good meal, you will supply to your best.
compared to the other one who is hungry because of the poor meal he or she had. So the working conditions, good working conditions attract the working population and hence leading to high labor supply, while poor working conditions will discourage the people from working, leading to a low labor supply. Can we have someone talk about the education and level of education and the training period? Someone to explain to us, depending on the above explanations we've had. We talk of the level of education and the training period. Alvin, can you say something about the level of education and the training period?
The levels of education. So if one has like if one has high levels of education, like they have studied a lot, you produce, you supply more and work efficiently. While one studied or has low levels of training, supply less labor.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that input. So when we talk of the level of education and the training period, if I train for 1 week and the other one trains for 2 months, it's automatically that the one who trains for 2 months will have a lot to present. So the labor supply for such kind of person will be high. And for the level of education, someone who has a certificate in some course and the other one has a degree in the same course, you do not expect those people to have the same knowledge about that course. So it means that the other person that has gotten high level of education will have high labor supply compared to this one with a low level of education. So a long training period keeps the workers at school for a longer period of time, which leads to low labor supply. And then for education, those ones that have gotten higher levels of education will actually provide high labor supply. We also have the attitude towards work. Some people have got a negative attitude towards their work. So you do not expect such people to provide to their best. The labor supply for such people will be very low because they have gotten a negative attitude towards their work. And those ones with actually the positive attitude will provide to their best, and you'll find that the labor supply for such people is actually high. So there are other factors like the sex composition. There is what we call the rate of migration, influence of trade unions. We shall see them. Can we have some questions before we close our meeting today or our lesson today? I want to answer some questions from you. Anyone with a question? Any question about what we've covered? Should I assume that you've gotten everything? Patricia, Noah, Manuela, Alvin, Emma, any question?
Teacher.
Yes, Manuela.
I was asking what does the term efficiency of labor mean?
What does the term
efficiency of labor mean?
Efficiency, deficiency.
Efficiency.
Efficiency of labor.
Yeah.
Yes. Before I answer, can we have someone talk about it on the floor?
Yeah, I can try.
Yes, Alvin, try.
Efficiency is like it's a measure of quantity, of quality and quantity of output, like a person can produce in a given period of time.
Can you come again? You are breaking.
It's the measure of quantity and quality a person giving labor can produce in a given period of time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that input. It's the productive capacity that includes the quality and quantity, as he has said, that you, the worker, can do or can provide, and at a given period of time, at a specific period of time. So when you talk of efficiency, you can you make sure that you include the quality and quantity a worker can perform and at a given period of time, which we are going to also look at it after looking at the labor supply. We shall look at it in details. Any other question?
Madam, I was kind of requesting like to help me out with the law of diminishing returns.
He is asking about the law of diminishing return. Can we have someone talk about it before? Yes. Law of diminishing returns. It can also be known as the principle of diminishing marginal productivity. Can we have someone talk about it? No one. Okay. So the first option you can take is it is actually a principle that states that profits or benefits gained from something will represent a proportionally smaller gain as more money or energy is invested in it. All else, you can say that this law of diminishing return states that if one input in the production of a commodity is increased, while other inputs are held fixed, a point will eventually will be reached at which additions of the input yielded. So here you talk of the inputs. For example, we said that production, you will need raw materials. These are the inputs that you need in the production. So for example, you're producing some commodities and you have like 3 inputs or raw materials to input into that process. And you make sure that one input in the production of that commodity is increased compared to the other 2 inputs. So you make sure that you hold the 2 inputs at a certain position. You hold them fixed, and then you increase the 3rd input. So the point at which it will eventually be reached, that's the diminishing point, or the point of maximum yield. So the input that you're using to increase the production will actually yield you to the point of maximum production. And the basic example, you can talk of a factory. If a factory employs workers to manufacture its products at some point, the company will operate at its optimal value or level with all factors constant, leaving the other input we talked about that is going to be getting increased, and then this will lead to the optimal level. So that's the law of diminishing return. And its point, when we talk of the other maximum point, you can say that the point of diminishing return is that point after the optimal level of capacity. And yeah, the optimal level, that's the point of diminishing return. And it comes after increasing the input one input leaving other inputs constant. Can we have another question? If there is no other question, we are timed out actually. We can stop here for today and continue from there in the next lesson. Thank you for joining Yaaka. You can keep on and subscribe for more lessons and more notes and everything.
All right. Thank you very much, madam.
Welcome.